I think Zeppelins are super cool. They're like these behemoths of the sky. It's so awesome. They're absolutely wonderful and scary. Like imagine seeing a Zeppelin like above you. That is horrifying. But historically, as we look at World War One, we realize that they were quite the massive targets. They were very easily shot down. So they weren't really much of a worry in terms of the scale of the wars like World War One. So, in my interpretation, let's say we have this universe where it takes place in the interwar period. Zeppelins are leaning out of service. We obviously know that they are not an effective aircraft as they're getting shot down. So, in this fictional universe, Command takes over. They're like, hey, Zeppelins, these are not working out. We need to make a change. And so, let's say some commander has an idea. He's like, okay, how about we retrofit the Zeppelins? They are not dropping bombs or anything anymore. We are taking them and we are putting them in the back line of service, let's say like 20 miles away from combat, 20, 30 miles away from combat. And we are affixing them with frickin' battleship-sized cannons. And so we're gonna have these Zeppelins floating in practically the stratosphere, like 20 miles away from the front lines, and they are gonna have essentially battleship guns on them, like these long-range artillery bombardment freaking calibers. And so what the point of this is I'm sure you know the stereotype of having like a Zeppelin in the background of a game, like in Battlefield. Like you'll be playing a map and there's just like an ominous Zeppelin in the background. Or if we take this example and we put it in the real life, then you have this Zeppelin that's all the way in the background of the map, and you're like, huh, that's a cool Leviathan in the air, pretty spooky. And then you see these little like, I don't really know what you call them, like these little glints or shines in the rough. In a time that would take probably like 9 to 10 seconds. So you can see that things are happening. Like you would know that something is coming towards you. And so the idea of literally seeing something that mentally is just a background object, you're like, oh, yeah, that's pretty cool. And then you see it like, possibly like bouncing a bit. You're like, oh, that's weird. It looks like, something's coming out of it. And oh wait, that's coming towards me. And given that this is like 20 miles away, this is not going to be precise. So literally, basically the idea of the battleship bombardment coming from the air, you can physically see it happening. Also, in terms of war, it makes sense because, yeah, Zeppelins are big, but how are you going to shoot a target that's like 20 miles away? Like, I don't really get it. But for Zeppelins, they don't really have to have precision. They're just trying to essentially scare people with massive bombardment guns. So you have these giant Leviathans in the air, and they are just bombarding. I mean, they literally can like go super high up. I don't think you can realize how high up Zeppelins can go. Like even with the curvature of the Earth, they can still like raise high enough to hit you. And given that, they could be like slightly above in the air and it looked like they're basically parallel to the ground if necessary. But I'm assuming they wouldn't be that way. And also this thought could be extended into balloons. Say you have like a hot air balloon, but it is given like a gun. So it's sort of like this scouting thing. Like you also put that in perspective. Zeppelins could be used as perfect scouts. You give them like, say you give them like these machine gun mounts that are essentially just high-powered binoculars, and since they're so close to the bases below or the friendly contact, they could just immediately contact them. Or if you're really desperate, you could basically just make the balloons only surface up from where they're stationed and then just have a long wire connected. So it's like direct contact. Sure, that direct contact might have to be a few miles long, but I mean, like this is all real. Like, let's be frank here. In an alternate universe, this would all be reasonable. So I just think these are awesome ideas, and I'd really love to see a franchise use them. Which is why I'm mentioning them in mine today. Because maybe one day I'll visualize them, but that might take a few years because, well, I'm not very good at scripting. Maybe modeling. Oh, whatever.